Committee reports. This governing body has subcommittees that look at certain areas in more detail and focus than we could possibly do in the time we have allowed, and we've got chairs for each of those committees who do an excellent job of digging into that detail on our behalf. They each write reports to say this is what we've discussed, so that those who aren't at the meeting or don't chair can get that assurance of we know that my colleague is covering that. We've had written reports for several of the committees, and some of them will have verbal updates. I'm going to take those committee reports as being read, and thank you, chairs, they were really, really helpful. Anybody who wants to add comments, you are welcome to. Jamie, do you want to add?
I did want to add something on the Patient Public Engagement Committee. Firstly, I'd like to say that sadly we heard that Adrian Barrett, who's the Chief Officer of Voluntary Action, AIDA Voluntary Action, passed away, and he was a very valued and one of our longest serving members of the Public Engagement Committee, and we'd like to formally thank the Barrett family for that, and I'd like that recorded. One of the things that came up sort of after the committee, and normally if there's something we need to sort of refer to the governing body, it would be discussed at the committee, because it came up afterwards, and flagging it up, and maybe we could just decide whether it's something that the governing body should action or whether it should go to the audit committee, which is meeting after this. So, because of what's happened with AIDA Voluntary Action, and we've also subsequently heard from Voluntary Action, Aaron and Chichester, that they won't be attending PEC because they're attending the LCNs. And Community Works have also said because they attend the LCNs, it clashes with attending PEC. So at present we had 4 Voluntary Action members attending. So from that, at present we've only got 1, and Gabriella Oakley from Community Works said she's trying to work with some of the other ones to see if they can attend by rotation. So it may well be that they might turn around and say, well, actually, we've got 1 member who's attending by rotation. Now, we did try that in the past, and it didn't work effectively, but clearly, if that's what they want to do, we would obviously consider it. But from my point of view, we've got a vacancy for 3 other members, and we've always had this gap that we've got locality public members, who attend the locality meetings, and they don't attend PEC, and we tried to get them to attend as observers previously, but it didn't work by rotation. And given that we've now got a gap of 3 members, and I'm wondering whether the governing board could action reviewing that part of the membership to see whether we could have maybe 3 public members from the locality attending by rotation, and instead of, because I personally am not very comfortable with people attending by rotation because it doesn't work. We've tried it with the voluntary action previously. So one option maybe is whether we can link in with our commissioning intentions and say if we look at mental health issues, whether we could ask mine to attend and identify some of the larger voluntary sector organisations, link in with them, and as and when specific items come in, we invite them to attend, so we're getting quite a meaningful engagement. So we need to review our voluntary action attendance into PEC and the locality. So whether that's an action that comes to you from the governing board, or whether you want to mandate the audit and assurance committee look at that.
I think I'd be happy for you and John to discuss it and make a recommendation you're comfortable with. And if I can be of any support or help in that, I'm happy to. But I think it would be really important to me that you were comfortable with whatever recommendation we have going forward.
It's mainly an action point that needs to be given, and normally what we would do is the committee would discuss it, and then previously we used to refer to the CCE, and obviously now it's the governing board. So in a way we are working through a transition on this.
So I think we're at a point, aren't we, where a few things need to work out. Obviously, as we start to develop the LCNs to take forward our intentions going forward, it's going to start to challenge what a CCG does do and did do before. And we're in that sort of point, aren't we, in that? So I think what I would really welcome is, as part of the scope of the governance that we're putting together, is almost the look back and what takes us forward. So my sense would be there's something about making sure all that work is captured there, because I think it's an example of, I think, a few things that we need to work out. Are we going to be commissioning the integrated care partners to do something on our collective behalf? Does that include patient public involvement. It doesn't mean we're delegating all our responsibilities away, but I think what's really, really important is we don't try to do things twice. And what it feels to me, not knowing it in complete detail, Jamie, is that it feels to be we're doing it sort of twice in this current way. So I think let's almost look at the scope of it through the governance view and give us the options of how we would take that forward. And I think when they meet with you as part of the governance view, whoever we ask to do that for us, I think you can give your thoughts about that, and then as a governing body we can consider it all in the round rather than taking perhaps each individual particular issue.
I totally agree.
If that's okay with you.
And that's precisely the point, is that there are members who are sitting on the LCNs, and should them then be sitting on PEC, and clearly that it needs to be looked at as a wider picture. So, sorry, could I just come back? Is that an action point that's going to be?
I think the action is probably to include in the governance review, which is something that the action can go under my name, because I know that they'll come and say to me, what do you want including? How we ensure the patient and public voice is getting to the right people at the right time. And they will naturally talk to, but whoever does the governance review will talk to both of you about what does your experience suggest would help and what are you comfortable with. So I think that's
I think in a way, coming back to the point about the PEC membership, so as part of the process, I'd like to review the voluntary action membership at PEC and the public members from the locality membership of PEC.
Yeah.
So those two are flagged up as part of the process.
Definitely. PEC membership and LCN, yeah. And I think it's difficult for small charities that are working with volunteers, if they get asked to go to lots and lots of meetings, very hard for them to choose. They want to make sure that they're representing, but so I think we've got to be mindful of that.
And actually it's preferable for that their input is much more valued at the LCN, because PEC is an assurance committee.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, that's really, really helpful. So regarding finance and performance and the PCCC and Quality Committee, which we have papers on, was there anything that those chairs would like to add or particularly draw our attention to, or are you happy that the papers summarise it? Rafe, would you mind giving us a quick update on CISC, please, the Clinical Innovation and Strategy Committee?
Yes, I would like to talk about the Clinical Innovation and Strategy Committee. Was really formed under Dr. Armstrong's wing as a result of a review by a lady called Darryl Robinson, who came in to help us make a transition last year. Its first meeting was in September 2017, and it has been involved in looking at the Tranche 2 policies, in essence giving a clinical voice to some of the issues for the CCG. And what I would ask is that in the review, I would wish you to think about the clinical voice that the executive gets about plans that you might be thinking of in the future. And that could be about changing drugs, for instance, going from thyroxine to thyroxine. It could be about Tranche 2 policies. It could be about sense-checking QUIP schemes, etc. So in your review, I would like you to think about how that should happen.
Certainly.
Because I think the remit of CIS should change and perhaps be an advisory committee rather than a subcommittee of the governing body.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
And Audit and Assurance Committee, Chris, I know you're handing over to John. Is there anything that you wanted to let us know about the Audit and Assurance Committee as your parting gesture?
No, if members of the public are wondering why there isn't a report, it's because, for various reasons, the next Audit and Assurance Committee is Thursday. So we're out of sync, and that's because we have to review and approve the final accounts before they get submitted on Friday, and it had to be done at the last minute. So, no, and I am delighted John is going to take the reins, and I have every confidence he will enjoy that role.
Lovely. Remuneration Committee is a committee that I will chair. It hasn't sat since I've started in my role. In March, we virtually approved the arrangements for the new accountable officer and senior management team. There is no date set for the next Remuneration Committee. What happens with this committee is it meets as and when it needs to meet, rather than having a regular timetable. And we are just going to play it by ear and see when feels like the most appropriate time to bring that committee together to make discussions. When's it?
Review the dates.
There is a meeting booked on the 3rd of July, so this is this kind of backup you need in this role. And we just need to be careful what we're going to discuss and when. So the Remuneration Committee, there isn't a report because there was nothing formally to report in writing, but it still runs, it still has the same statutory responsibility, and it's meeting at the start of July.